open that page, I'll search for my fix, find what I need in the deep dark abyss.
Hi, welcome to another podcast, AI Skeptics podcast. Today it's a little special because Jake's away for travel, and it's going to be me and Karrie Karahalios, which I'm really happy I pronounced her last name correctly. Karrie is joining us from the MIT Media Lab, and you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Karrie Karahalios. I am a recent arrival to the Media Lab as of September. Prior to that, I actually was a grad of the Media Lab many years ago, then spent 21 years at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
Right. And Karrie has kindly come here to my place, my workplace, and now my apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts. And she's drinking a glass of wine with me. So, cheers to that. And cheers to it being on a Friday. As usual, we have 3 topics, and it's going to be basically me asking you questions about your life, at least for the first 2. So we're going to talk about you and what you do at the Media Lab and what you've done, and then we're going to talk about this book that you wrote with a bunch of other people that I read this week, which is really fascinating. And I should say that because it's a book about what I do for a living. So that's,
Yeah, we talk about you in the book.
Yeah. And then, we're going to sort of broaden our perspective at the end, but let's start with you. So tell us like where you came from and the kind of work you do, and like how you think about auditing AI and other stuff.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a mutt. Actually my original, area of expertise was electrical engineering. And
that makes sense. You went to undergrad for MIT, right?
Yeah.
So you're an EECS geek. I
was an EECS geek. Actually, it's like my degree doesn't exist anymore. I was like a 6-1 major.
Oh.
I'm sure they have some version of it, but that designation no longer exists.
Wait, what does 6-1 mean exactly?
6-1 was electrical engineering. There was like 6-1 and 6-3 at the time. 6-3 was CS. Now there's like, CS and decision making, like CS and, some version of like finance or econ.
Yeah. Is there an AI CS now?
Yeah, I think it's AI and decision making.
Right. Okay, so you started as an electrical engineer. What did you want to do with yourself?
Well, I wanted to build things. I wanted to make things. I was a builder. And during my time doing undergraduate research, something called the web browser came out. And I started working in this area that today we would call like human-computer interaction. Stopped so much working on making, chips smaller and faster, focused more on what people were doing with these tools at the ends, and started thinking more and more about people. And so from human-centered, and now I would argue a lot of what I think about is more community-centered, not just, the person, the machine, or the person on the network.
Yeah.
But the people and, the landscape around them. And
interesting.
It's much more complex. And also I think much more important.
So what's the kind of project that you are working on now or have been recently?
So,
but before that, you spent a lot of time in Illinois. You want to mention that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I spent 21 years there. I ran a group called the Social Spaces Group.
And that's in
Urbana-Champaign. And also co-founded the Center for People and Infrastructures and the Center for Just Infrastructures.
Ooh, Center for Just Infrastructures.
Yeah.
What is an unjust infrastructure?
Like great question. I would say that there are many hiring tools that are unjust infrastructures. There are many, welfare system tools that are unjust infrastructures. And if you think about infrastructure as a whole, like citywide, thinking about broadband rollout and where broadband is rolled out, you can have a lot of unjust infrastructures due to lack of access, geographically. We thought that my group was called Social Spaces because we thought a lot about place and space. And after having, lived in, the city of Chicago, in villages in Greece and in Urbana, the idea of place became very salient. A lot of my interest lies in differences between rural and urban spaces. So, for example, even if you look at the history of the telephone, in the early days, in many rural spaces, they had more of a party line.
Yeah.
Where the phone would ring, you could tell from the ring if it was for you. You pick up the phone, but anyone could pick up the phone and listen to it. In rural spaces, people love this. It made them feel safe. Urban spaces, people wanted more like individuality. They wanted their privacy. And if you go to like archives or final magazines, you can find sort of like the equivalent of maybe like the tech exec of the time, who would be like the telephone executive saying, these troublesome farmers are like destroying the infrastructure and trying to build back these party lines when they were taken away.
Interesting.
And a lot of our work has found that designs right now are built more for some spaces and not others.
I bet that's true. I think about that when I think about like bike lanes.
Yeah.
Like who gets bike lanes? Who gets to be safe on their bicycle?
And that is, you go to different countries and you even see barriers between the bicyclists and the cars.
Yeah. You're seeing that somewhat in Somerville. Somerville is a special place.
Boston just last week, I almost saw a rider collide with a bus. But that was a little scary.
Ooh, God.
But the idea of place is like salient. And just to connect some of our older work to some of our newer work, we're looking a lot at like data centers right now and where data centers are built, who decides where they're built, who has the right to speak out. Do you even know the consequences of having like a data center like in your neighborhood?
I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, but it does occur to me that like data centers have a terrible reputation right now. And I know that, they're going to be heavy users of the electrical grid. I know that they are not going to give that many jobs because ultimately they're like pretty much server farms, right? But do they deserve that terrible reputation beyond that? Or like, how should we think about this?
I think we have to reframe the question.
Yeah.
I think it's like, should people have a say in how close they are to where they live and how it affects their children, how it affects their electrical bills?
How would it affect their children?
In terms of spaces, like in some places right now, like parks are taken up or what would have been a park.
Oh, I see
there's
what you
some
mean.
eminent domain issues that are popping up.
I believe it. Yeah, it seems like really obvious you don't want one of those terrible detention centers near you because then, in addition to it being like a violation of human rights, you also have like competing plumbing problems. That's a very obvious problem.
Yeah.
And data centers are less obvious to me. I've gone to a couple talks by people who are experts in the energy grid, and they basically, maybe they're paid off, but they basically are like, yeah, that's kind of overblown, like the fears of the electrical grid.
I think some parts, like Karen Howe gave a talk recently and, restated some of the comments from water use. I think it would be great, for example, if states have laws that, yes, build a data center if you can make like a zero power, infrastructure. That would be amazing.
The higher level point, which you're making, which I agree with entirely, is that this is a community decision. Like you can't just be the people with all the money just get to decide how our landscape looks.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of work you're doing now?
It's one project. So I guess in Illinois, I was doing a lot of work around, technology, communities, and people. And I stupidly thought that I could solve a lot of people problems with technology.
I remember that being that stupid person too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to get trapped in there.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like good at math and,
I heard a talk and people were like, yeah, people don't want to make their communities on social networks by hand. It takes too long. And I'm like, you know what? I can automate it and I'll do that. And I did.
So you built a social network for like a small community?
No, I built automation tools to build clusters of your community members within existing platforms.
Okay. Like Facebook?
Yeah. And it turns out that what I built was causing more problems than solving. And so it was like a research paper. We brought a bunch of people into the lab, asked them to like compare and contrast the clusters that we built. And it turns out that we could influence so much of their future behavior based on the clusters that we made. We could influence who they spoke to, who they didn't speak to.
So the power of design.
Scary. It was scary. And we stopped the work, but the paper that we had planned that was supposed to be around, look how great our algorithms are, ended up being a paper about bias and the harm that these algorithms could cause.
That is really interesting.
And that got us into thinking a lot about research methods. Like, can you even write a paper like this? Like, if we were to have registered this study as is common in social science spaces, like to do one thing, but to find something entirely different.
Yeah.
Like, what is the nature of exploratory research versus, more directed research?
But what's beautiful about that story is that, like, it really is research, right? You really did not know what the answer was, like how it was going to turn out, because you weren't just looking at, can I program this spec? You're looking at how are people going to interact with this spec? It's just like truly unknown until you see it.
Yeah. And bringing people into a space to talk about it and to see their anger at times.
Ooh, like that sounds pretty juicy. Unfortunately, we don't have much more time for that. Yeah. Maybe we can go back to that. But I did want to, we didn't actually get to your work at MIT. So maybe you could just give us a couple minutes about that, because I want to get to the book.
Yeah. So a lot of what we're doing builds off of previous work around helping people see some of the signals leak through the interfaces so they can make the decisions they want when it comes to using some of these algorithmic tools that might be more opaque, focusing on people's autonomy, focusing on dignity. Yeah. Giving people a voice to contest a system. Like, what does it mean to build a contestable system?
Right.
And when do you build and when do you just say, no, like, we should not build this?
Right.
Which is something that at MIT is, kind of hard to say sometimes.
I bet. So who are you working with there?
So starting a brand new group. At the moment, I still have 2 students at Illinois. I hooded 4 students last week.
Oh, congratulations.
There. Yeah. And they are amazing. I can't wait to see what they do next. I'm working with an MD student at MIT, 2 undergrads, and just admitted 2 new students for the fall.
Great.
And we will have a postdoc and 2 visiting students. So
that's wonderful.
In the ramp up process.
Yeah. You mentioned to me when we talked earlier that you are reaching out across different disciplines.
Yeah. So, historically, we've worked with public health departments. We've worked with, city leaders and trying to build similar relationships that I've had in Illinois here in the Massachusetts area.
Yeah.
And the new director of the Media Lab has been super helpful.
Great.
Jessica Rosenworcel is our new director. She used to be.
I met her. She's wonderful.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's former chairwoman of the FCC. Yeah. Responsible for.
And she worked on the last mile problem for internet.
She did.
Yeah. That was cool. That's great. Well, I'm so glad that you're in Boston, because there's just not enough people who think about this stuff in Boston. So I'm glad you're here and you're starting stuff and you're going to have students thinking about this stuff. And I hope to meet them all. I want to talk about this book that you wrote, Auditing AI. Tell us about how this book came about.
So I mentioned the Center for People and Infrastructures. I was lucky enough to work with amazing folks like Christian Sandvig, Kevin Hamilton, Cedric Langbort, and we started building audits. And we got laughed at a lot, to be honest, at the beginning.
Really?
And and people are like, this is just what security people do. Like, what are you doing that's new?
Interesting.
And we were running workshops in different countries, on our campus, conducting lots of different audits. And like one of my favorite themes that came out of some of these audits was like people would be like, when they would see, well, like many of our audits showed counterfactuals or what you see versus what you could have seen. And people were like, wow, it's like waking up and realizing you're in the matrix. of like what they choose to show you versus what actually is out there.
I remember that Wall Street Journal article about like left versus right feeds on Facebook.
Yeah, red feed, blue feed.
Yes.
Yeah. And
that was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing you were doing?
Some parts like that.
Mm-hmm.
As we were doing it, we were also getting a little bit scared because our IP addresses were getting blocked. We were getting lawyers telling us not to do the work.
Yeah, one of the things I read about in your book was with Christian Sandvig and somebody else. You guys actually brought a lawsuit to sue on behalf of auditors. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that was also with Ellen Mislov and Crystal Wilson and a media company and the amazing folks at the ACLU.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Good for them.
And yeah, Aisha Bandari and Rachel Goodman. For me, it was new territory. It wasn't something I expected to do as a researcher. But we basically admitted guilt up front that we were collecting this data.
Violating the terms and conditions that you clicked on?
Yeah. The ones that nobody reads.
Yeah, the ones that nobody reads.
And
so on a particular website?
We were specifically looking at civil rights cases.
Yeah.
So we were looking at cases surrounding like employment, credit, and housing.
My favorite three things.
And we were collecting.
Besides insurance. Those are my top four.
And we were collecting lots of data in these spaces.
Yeah.
And every now and then we'd see a lawsuit against like John Doe's, and our lawyers would be like, brace yourselves. And we sued at the time Loretta Lynch, who was the Attorney General under Obama.
Wow.
And this was happening then. The lawsuit went through several different Attorney Generals. I believe it ended with Barr, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
And it was interesting going to.
So let me just back up for a second. You should have a sip of your wine because you forget to drink your wine when you're on a roll, which I appreciate. But so basically, you're trying to do an audit. You're trying to say, like, what if I changed something like this slightly? Would you then offer me a job? Or what if I changed this? Would you then offer me a worse credit offer or like higher interest rate or whatever? You wanted to test the tools.
Yeah.
But the tools basically made you like promise not to do that.
Yeah. So there are two big things that we were getting in trouble for. One, let's say we want to do a housing audit.
Yeah.
We would basically make like thousands of little like bots. Yeah. Some of them would be like white male, white female, black male, black
classic
female.
Sociological experiments. Yes.
Like mimicking almost directly the classic social science audits.
Yeah.
That are mandated by the Federal Housing Act.
It's a thing.
And
they work.
Yeah. And the last one, I think, around race was like in 2012. So we need to do these more frequently.
Yeah.
And we would put out these agents, into the world. And there were two issues that people were primarily getting upset with. One was that we were collecting data. And if you read terms of service, some websites go so far as to say you cannot collect data manually from our website. And we don't even know what that means. Manually.
Nobody does that. Yes. It's just like, it's automated.
But if I want, does that mean I can't even write down something that I see from the page? Like, what does that mean?
Right.
The second thing was that they were saying that you can't falsify someone's identity. And so, like, let's say I want to put out a bunch of different resumes. And let's say it's the same resume with a bunch of different names. I am falsifying an identity, but it is information that the public has a right to know.
Couldn't agree more. So it went into court. It stayed there forever. And then it finally came out that it was okay, what you did.
It finally came out that the case was ultimately dismissed.
Yeah.
First, it was the part about like scraping data. They were like, yeah, don't worry about that. Then it was the part about like the identities.
Right.
Eventually it was dismissed. And along the way, the Department of Justice was like releasing like tidbits of information. Like they released a document, I think, shortly after we filed the lawsuit saying that we would never prosecute you if you lied about your height or your weight on a dating site. So don't worry.
Yeah. Good.
But people were worried about more than that. And
I mean, this is a basic journalistic approach to thinking about how the systems, modern systems, affect people.
Yeah. And it was interesting. People were talking about these like in Ubers. People were talking about these on the street. Like people were getting really into it. And they were saying like, how can I audit something of my own. Or like if I'm in Home Depot and I look at my phone, why is it cheaper on my phone than it was on the website before?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is tricky to do. I mean, I'm glad you guys cleared the path in that legal sense of being able to sort of, fake identities and for research purposes. But I would say that like and I'll just go back to the book, like you guys talk about black box audits. Those are the kind of audits I do normally. I almost never look at code. Like I don't really care about the code. I just want to know, how did people get treated by this system? Usually, almost always, I get all of the data. I mean, which might, it just sounds like extreme. It's actually amazing. Half the time it's because private companies have hired me to audit their systems, and so that I have access to their data. The other half of the time, we're in a lawsuit and we have subpoena power for it.
Oh, you can go through Discovery.
Yeah, Discovery is my best friend. And so I just get like all the data. And when I say all the data, like usually there's a time period, like 2020 to now or whatever. But we get like, here's all the people that have actually been treated by the system, and how did they fare? We can have outcomes, at least the outcomes that are collected by the companies. And that's, but at the end of the day, so I don't have to worry about these kinds of questions about like, am I allowed to look for this data, because I get handed the data.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate a lot of the things that you say in this book, like how, how audits can be black box, right? Which, by the way, I just want to throw out that like, even if I were willing to read the code, many of these processes, like if you think about insurance or something, they are stringed together like many, many different pieces,
Yeah.
Like half the people are shuttled to that system, and then the other half are split into 4 different groups. And, you don't want to have to think through that. You just want to say what happened to them.
Yeah.
Like, how did it go in? How did they come out?
It's also more complicated now because people are building these tools with software from different countries.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that is proprietary.
Yeah.
And the trade laws are getting in the way.
So even if you had access to all that code base, like, no, just tell me how things ended up for these folks. So that's great. You talk about like things like you have chapters on what makes an audit a good audit.
Yeah. And that's so important.
It is important. And it made me think in a different way than I've ever thought. I mean, I've certainly thought, the goal of my company Orca is to set standards for auditing.
Yeah.
So it's really front and center, like what makes an audit a good audit. But the things that you level to the surface, bring to the surface are really crucial. I appreciate them. It's like a checklist of things. And, like you talk about conflicts of interests with auditing and auditors, and that's very important too. I'll just throw in there on top of the pile that like, until we have good standards, it's very difficult and until we have actual policy that requires third-party auditing, like which we keep talking about, we haven't actually seen a lot of. It's really hard to have any leverage when you're writing a contract with a company to do an audit, because you're like, I would like to have good standards here, but like I'm at their whim, like in the sense that they're paying me. So at the end of the day,
well, I would actually love to ask that question to you in a sense, because I use your HireVue audit in my courses as an example of an audit.
Yeah.
And we do have some standards in hiring. I would argue they're way too low. But
you mean the 4/5 rule?
Yeah.
That's not even a rule.
Yeah.
I talked to the EEOC, various EEOC people, and they're like, we don't consider that a rule. But in like lawsuits, it is considered a rule.
Yeah. And you've defined in many ways standards that you use, or, values that you work around. But when you were designing that HireVue audit, like, how did you go about deciding? Because of all the possible things you could assess, and there are hundreds, you narrowed down some very specific ones. Yeah.
Oh, well, I have a whole process. I mean, we at Orca have like this thing called the ethical matrix.
Yeah.
So, and it's actually apropos to the book too, because you're like, you say it in the book, but I'm just going to reemphasize it, that it's like, it's all about asking the right question.
Yeah.
Like, what is the question? Who could be harmed and how? And that's exactly the point of the ethical matrix process, is to say, who are the stakeholders here and what could the harms be? And like, just keep honing in on like, what is the worst possible existential risk, or what's the short list of the worst, 6 or 7 things that could go wrong with this. Wrong meaning harming people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always about the harm of people. Now I don't claim that the 4/5 rule is the right rule in terms of a standard, but I do think asking questions like, is this hiring algorithm sexist? Is this hiring algorithm racist? Is it ageist? Those are very obvious questions that are not answered for almost anything, like any LinkedIn system, any hiring system should, before it gets deployed, should be asking, how do I measure that? And what is the threshold for good enough?
Yeah. I think to that point, one of the things that we've been looking at a lot lately is because in the absence of, standards from above, we're looking at what smaller cities are doing.
Yeah.
And when you find a small city or even a city that does something interesting, people copy them. Yeah. So we've been actually exploring like AI policies across lots of different cities and looking at similarities, finding who people copy. Boston has copied a lot, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
What do they do?
In some of their policies. So a lot of cities right now are looking at anything that might touch, the civilians in the city, whether it comes to like anything around healthcare. So a lot of people are trying to sell cities AI products right now.
I'm sure.
And they have to have some type of screening process to figure out what they will allow, if they allow it, how they assess it, and then how they continue to monitor it. And so all of the same questions that we're asking right now, cities are asking themselves too. So cities should find you.
I can't tell you how excited I would be to be part of that conversation for Boston or for Somerville or for Cambridge or whatever.
Yeah, because these questions around equity in cities are critical, and decisions we make now are going to be embedded in these infrastructures for like decades to come.
And and that brings us to our third topic, which we've shortchanged a little bit, but we're going to do our best. You think about this stuff because it's international in scope, these systems and these algorithms and these AI chatbots, and there's just like the uptake is international, certainly national. You'd think that the rules around them would be, and the conversation around what they could do wrong would also be international in scope. But right now we're living through a time where that's just not the case.
It is not the case.
Yeah. So I find it interesting that,
unless you consider the Pope, that.
Well, okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's one exception. And actually when you bring up the Pope with his encyclical that happened this week, it goes back to your earlier comment about like human dignity and technology and people.
When I was reading parts of that, I was like, it felt like, our webpage and like our mission as a group.
Yeah. Same mark.
And part of me, I want to assign it in some of my classes.
Yes.
It's not the first time that, folks from the Vatican are discussing AI. There have been several, like just a few years ago, the Pontifical Society, or I forget exactly what they're called. They had a bunch of events at Notre Dame where they invited people from around the world to discuss what was happening with AI. It was interesting. At that time, the discussions were very like techno-solutionist, AI solutionist.
I bet.
This Pope's document was really more about people and the kind of world we want to live in and the kind of world we want to create. And it was less centered on technology.
Yeah.
And more centered on what do we need as human? Like, what do we need to have meaning in our lives? What do we need to get up every morning?
Yeah.
What helps us move forward?
Right.
And it was also about helping each other. Whereas some of the other documents prior to that were more about how we can make things easier.
Right.
How we can, how universities like don't have to grade anymore because these systems can grade for us.
Right.
And there was less discussion of ethics. In fact, ethics might have been, the last talk of the day.
Well, it really is fascinating how, well, first of all, you know that I actually got to meet the Pope a couple months ago. Yeah. I actually got to meet him in the context of AI. There was like a conference in the Vatican, which was awesome.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah. And I got to hear him talk a little bit about it, and he was right on. And I was like, dang, this guy is thinking right about this. Yeah. He's thinking about how does it affect people? How does it affect their sense of self? How does it affect their dignity of their everyday lives? And that's really, really, and their work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, when I hear people saying that, with these AI tools, we won't have to work in the future, like I get really, really
angry. Oh my God. That just makes me want to punch him in the face.
It's like you go back to Keynes and he was saying the same thing. And then you see like so many people saying that today as if that is a goal.
Well, but here's the thing. And I remember Keynes saying that, not that I was alive at the time, but I remember reading about that especially when I was an occupier and just thinking, well, he had this like naive notion that rich people want to share.
Yeah.
And that's just not how things actually are. Like right now we could, you hear people who are huge proponents of AI saying, oh, we won't have to work. But then they should start thinking, oh, but I won't want to share.
Yeah. It also does
massive wealth that I obtain.
For the fact that people are competitive. And it's it also doesn't account for the fact that maybe some people won't work, but those people will be telling others to work for them.
It's just like another Gilded Age is what it is. It's just a more extreme version. And like, it's going to work until it doesn't work because people are like, fuck this. That's what's going to happen.
Pretty much what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm actually at this point, I'm just, okay, I'm ready for that to happen. I'm ready for these billionaires to get theirs. But listen, it could end in revolution. That wouldn't be great. It'd be better to have a grassroots effort to like make these things more moderate. Yeah. And like going back to our earlier conversation about the Boston City Council, presumably, who are thinking through like AI safeguards. Like it is interesting to me that because the federal government is wholly owned by Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel, and we have no federal regulation in sight. They're even trying to squelch statewide regulations, and they really are throwing lobbyists at that. Yeah. So now what we're dealing with is like literally city governments are kind of the vanguard.
Yeah. Pritzker's proposing something interesting in Illinois.
Say it.
Like, I don't know if it's going to stick, but it seems like it shouldn't be unique. It's basically what people have been asking for ages. Like nothing.
Well, that's what's interesting about it. Is like people want this.
Yeah.
Individual people want this.
Even the big tech people have been requesting it like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Like people want this. Managers of companies want this. Government leaders want this. You talked about international earlier. We did have models for international governance. We had forms of nuclear disarmament. Messaging, laws, those are disintegrating right now too.
Yeah.
But there are models for doing something like this if we could have a conversation about it together. And people do want this.
You know what? We're going to have to stop because we're at time, but I will just say that people want this. There's political forces preventing this conversation from really happening, but it is going to happen.
It's going to happen. The question is, how much upheaval we will have until it happens. But if we need it,
how much revolution are we getting? How many pitchforks are going to have to be sharpened before this happens? Anyway, thank you so much. And I'm going to say your name again, Karrie Karahalios.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for everything you do.
Just hold